Clouds drift across the dark, overcast sky as the lights in several rooms of Dead Mansion flicker against the night. The quiet, shadowed corridors echo with the faint, rustling sounds coming from one of the illuminated rooms. Beluga, with a sly grin that reveals his sharp teeth and cheeks flushed, appears delighted by his discovery of something cleverly hidden. He kneels in the wine cellar, where bottles line the walls, and a storage unit, now thoroughly searched by him, holds even more treasures. Triumphant, he holds up a vintage bottle, remarking on the refined tastes of the mansion's inhabitants, despite their eerie existence. Vincent, standing with his arms crossed, breaks into Beluga's reverie, questioning him with a mixture of sarcasm and exasperation. He pointedly suggests that perhaps stealing has become part of Beluga's skill set. Clearly annoyed, Vincent mutters that this is why you don't invite strangers into your home. But Beluga, undeterred, laughs and suggests they give him a proper welcome since he's already here. Vincent's gaze drifts to some documents scattered on a nearby desk. Curious, he inquires about them, and Beluga nonchalantly explains their security personnel placement records for Dead Mansion's clients. This piques Vincent's curiosity further, and he asks about the involvement of security. Holding several bottles under his arm, Beluga responds that Null has set his sights on the mansion's clients, and a mere handful of guards won't suffice. Outside, barefoot mercenaries now stand vigilant before the mansion, ready to escort clients and challenge any who dare threaten them. As an elderly man with a cigar watches over a child who tries to peek out the window, Beluga reveals that the wealthiest and most important VIP clients are under the highest protection. Vincent watches Beluga with new awareness, recognizing that his title as the strategic planner for Barefoot is well earned, his calculated moves reflecting a mastery in safeguarding Dead Mansion's interests. With a casual flick of his pocket knife, Beluga pries open a bottle of wine and makes light of Vincent's concerns, brushing off the notion that a few bottles could be cause for annoyance, especially given Dead Mansion's favorable end of the deal. Vincent, still skeptical, questions if Beluga truly understands the value of the wine, warning that the director won't be pleased if he finds out. Beluga waves off the worry, emphasizing this is precisely why he's seizing the moment, while the director is away. He raises a bottle toward Vincent, tempting him by saying it's his only chance to taste it. As Vincent's eyes linger on the bottle, Beluga slyly offers to pour him a glass. Moments later, the table bears the evidence of indulgence: scattered corks and red splashes of wine staining the wood. Vincent, now nursing his head, listens as Beluga, amused and flushed, remarks on the exquisite taste of the wines, playfully suggesting that Vincent may now be an accomplice in his little heist. Vincent lifts his gaze, the effects of the alcohol showing faintly in his cheeks, while Beluga, equally affected by the drink, shifts the conversation, probing a lingering curiosity. He questions Vincent about the children of Dead Mansion, the three principals, and hints at a fascination with how they've been conditioned, or perhaps even brainwashed, to obey so completely. As Vincent's expression grows guarded, Beluga chuckles, suggesting the idea of adopting one of the children, though his tone remains half in jest. Catching Vincent's wary look, Beluga laughs it off, insisting it was just idle curiosity, though a trace of genuine interest lingers in his gaze. In a low, contemplative tone, Vincent muses on the notion of brainwashing. He gazes into his wineglass, watching his reflection ripple as he continues, reflecting on how most children who arrive at Dead Mansion are those forsaken by their families. These children, burdened with an acute sense of inadequacy, become ideal subjects for Dead Mansion's methods. His thoughts drift to the director, a memory surfacing of him gently patting a young girl's head, his words chillingly tender as he tells her she was abandoned because she was imperfect. And so, to find acceptance, she must become the epitome of a good child. Vincent recalls the classes held for the children, rows of small faces staring intently at a television screen as they absorb the three principals, with young Eugene sitting front and center, eyes fixed with intense concentration on the image on the screen. Vincent's mind lingers on another memory, a softer scene, where Mari's cheeks were pinched gently, a small smile lighting up her face. The director's voice echoes in his memory, explaining that a good child must strive to excel, to rise above the others. Then, he recalls the director's face darkening, a stern reminder of the final tenet. Those who achieve this ideal of the good child may become part of a true family. Those who fail, however, will be cast aside once again, abandoned by their newfound family at Dead Mansion. Beluga scoffs, questioning with a hint of disbelief if that's truly all it takes to control the children. Vincent, slumped over the desk, murmurs that the weight of inadequacy binds deeply and powerfully. Beluga, swirling his glass and pointing it at Vincent, remarks with distaste on Dead Mansion's cruel methods, wondering aloud if the director devised this strategy alone. Vincent, visibly intoxicated, his face flushed, replies that the concept originated from someone else. Staring into his wine glass, Vincent speaks of the boy who first conceived this idea, a boy who, though not good himself, yearned to be. He recalls that this boy would go to any lengths to win his parents' approval. And as the memory surfaces, Vincent envisions Sion's twisted smile at the thought of another abandoned child joining Dead Mansion. He goes on to explain that it was this child's desperate desire for goodness that inspired the director's creation of the three principles, rules rooted in a relentless pursuit of acceptance. Cion lunges with the shattered tip of his katana, striking at Null, who dodges effortlessly, a mocking laugh escaping him as he claims this is Sion's true nature. Tauntingly, Null declares that Cion will never embody the ideal of a good child. Fueled by rage, Cion pivots and delivers a powerful kick aimed at Null's face, the impact resounding through the empty stairwell as it lands against Null's blocking arm, leaving a dusty shoe print on his jacket. Null smirks, noting that the kick hurt, an indication that Sion's strength has fully returned. Struggling to stay upright, Cion questions himself, wondering aloud if he truly can't become a good child. Memories flood his mind, his mother abandoning him in fear, the final painful encounter with Hyunho's mother, who had slapped him, anger in her eyes as she forbade him from calling her mother ever again. As he stands, blood trickles from his grip on the katana's jagged edge, and with a low, bitter grunt, Cion concedes that perhaps Null is right. Maybe he doesn't believe he's a good child. Seizing on this admission, Null begins to celebrate, but Cion cuts him off with a murderous glare. His voice, a venomous whisper, holds a dark resolve as he suggests that killing the one responsible for his mother's death might somehow redeem him, might make him a good child once more. Null, amused, scratches his head with the katana's hilt, questioning if Sion's desire for approval runs so deep. But then his expression turns grim, voice darkening as he remarks that this desperation is Sion's downfall. Cion crouches low, poised to strike, and as he lunges at Null with deadly intent, Null continues, deflecting the attack with ease. He reveals that it was Sion's actions that drove Dead Mansion to create the three absolute principles, to impose control over the other children. Each of Sion's attempts is thwarted as Null, still unshaken, lays bare the truth that Sion's own rebellion had forged the rigid discipline now binding Dead Mansion's children. Null deflects another stab from Cion, his expression calm despite the fierce pace of the fight. Blood drips from Sion's hand, where he grips the broken blade, spattering into Null's eye, momentarily forcing him to shut it. Seizing the advantage, Cion lunges forward. Null, unimpressed, mutters that Sion's desperation is pathetic as he prepares to retaliate. With a swift upward slash, Null disarms Cion, sending the blade's tip flying into the ceiling above. Pulling back his sword for another strike, Null sees Cion crouch defensively. Null sweeps a horizontal slash that cuts through the air, but Cion leaps high, evading the attack and grabbing hold of the blade tip lodged in the ceiling. Yanking it free, he brings it down in a counterattack. Null dodges back, but the blade still grazes his jacket lapels, slicing through them. Null glances at the torn fabric with a smirk, amused at the minor damage. Before Null can react further, Cion grabs a small coffee cup from the floor and hurls it at him, Null slashes at it, sending coffee splattering everywhere, clouding the air between them. Through the haze, Cion makes a swift move, aiming the blade tip at Null. Caught off guard, Null barely manages to deflect the attack, disarming Cion once more. But Cion doesn't relent. He grabs Null's arm, his face resolute, announcing that he finally has Null cornered. With a fierce punch, he strikes Null in the face, jolting his head back and forcing him to release his grip on the katana. Null, now holding his weapon in his other hand, retaliates with a slash, which Cion narrowly avoids by leaping back. Cion, a dark glint in his eyes, mutters his frustration with the weapon, its presence a constant obstacle. He braces himself to punch again, veins standing out on his hand as Null readies another swing, eyes gleaming red with excitement. As Null's blade slices toward him, Cion crouches and delivers an upward punch, shattering the katana blade from its handle. Null's eyes light up with a twisted admiration, impressed by Cion's ability to break the sword with his bare fist. Just as Cion prepares another punch, Null counters with a powerful knee to Cion's face, snapping his head back as he coolly remarks that Cion isn't as impressive as he'd hoped. Reeling but undeterred, Cion's gaze remains sharp, fixed on Null. He lands a forceful kick at Null, who blocks the strike. In the tension of the moment, Null subtly retrieves a small knife from his belt, preparing for a sudden, lethal move. Beluga yawns, showing little interest as he asks Vincent about the child who inspired the director to establish the three principles. Vincent, eyes fixed on the documents before him, confirms that it was Cion, the very boy whom Barefoot recently attempted to kill in the high school incident. Flipping through the paperwork, Vincent casually inquires whether any Barefoot guards had been assigned to protect Cion. Beluga replies with equal nonchalance, explaining that they didn't allocate anyone separately. Just as Vincent begins to express the importance of Cion, Beluga cuts him off, asserting there was no need for special assignments. As Cion and Null battle in the stairwell, a hand reaches to open the door. Beluga turns to Vincent, revealing that she personally went to Korea to ensure Cion's protection. The door swings open, and Sophia Alexander steps into the hallway, her towering frame and bulging muscles casting an imposing shadow. She surveys the scene with a calm intensity, then asks if they're playing house. Null, recognizing her, smiles with a mix of amusement and unease. Sophia, hands clasped behind her back, addresses Null with a steady gaze, noting his recent cocky behavior and the trouble he's been causing. Cion glances back at her, the sheer presence of Sophia's figure looming over him. With a warm greeting, Sophia acknowledges that it's been a while since they last saw each other, her gaze softening briefly as she takes in Cion's hunched posture and shadowed expression. Noticing the darkness clouding his eyes, she pats his head with an almost maternal familiarity and promises to catch up with him later. Her attention shifts to Null, and her mere glance freezes him in place, stifled by the force of her presence. Then, without warning, Sophia's fist shoots forward with startling speed, burying itself in Null's stomach. The impact is so forceful that the ground beneath her cracks, and the surrounding windows shatter from the explosive force. Null is sent hurtling backward, soaring several meters through the air. Sophia, watching his flight with detached amusement, remarks that he is still just a child, too lightweight to stand against her. Cion stares in shock, processing how effortlessly Sophia has dealt with Null. But Sophia's eyes widen with mild surprise as she spots the wreckage of a broken wheelchair and a smear of blood on the ground where Null landed. Following the trail, she sees a bloody smear on the windowsill, indicating that Null managed to escape, slipping out the window in his retreat. She calmly announces she won't pursue him, stating that capturing Null isn't her responsibility. Turning back to Cion, Sophia addresses him directly, calling him her disciple. She places a firm hand on his shoulder, towering over him as she examines his weakened state. Her eyes darken, and with an ominous tone, she questions how he has grown so weak during her absence. Fixing him with a thunderous look, she declares that adjustments will be necessary. Cion meets her gaze, his own expression a mixture of determination and a flicker of fear, bracing himself for whatever adjustments she has in mind.